Some birthdays change lives, not because of cake, not because of candles, but because someone stood up and made a decision for you. That birthday was Grandma Rose's 80th. The backyard was filled with laughter, the kind that drifts lazily in the late summer air. There were plastic tables covered with mismatched tablecloths, kids darting between folding chairs, and uncles telling the same old stories over lukewarm beer. It was the kind of gathering that smelled like grilled chicken, sunscreen, and nostalgia. Megan arrived with a quiet smile and a chilled bottle of wine tucked into her tote. She wasn't the type to show up late, nor the kind to make a big entrance. She was reliable, always was. She gave her grandmother a long hug, placed the bouquet of white lilies into a chipped vase on the porch, and politely declined a third helping of potato salad. She chatted with cousins, held a baby or two, laughed on cue, and found a shady corner to lean against the railing and just breathe. No one asked for anything important. No one pulled her aside to say, "How are you, Megan?" But that wasn't new. She'd perfected the art of existing in family gatherings like furniture, present, functional, expected. And just as the sun dipped low behind the fence and fireflies began flickering, Megan heard the sound that would change everything: a fork clinking against a glass. Her mother, Eleanor, stood up with a red plastic cup raised high, and that tone of voice, the one Megan had learned to fear: cheerful, final, unquestionable. "Everyone," she said, "let's raise a glass to Megan." Heads turned. A few people clapped prematurely. Megan has stepped up in a way that proves what family really means. She's going to help Rachel with the kids. It's not easy being a single mother of 3, but thanks to Megan's love and support, we know they'll be in good hands. Applause. Real applause. Someone shouted, "That's what sisters are for." Megan felt every pair of eyes fall on her like invisible bricks. Her smile held. Barely. She raised her glass out of habit, not agreement. Her throat tightened. She didn't remember agreeing to raise anyone's kids. Not formally, not in words. Just silence, which apparently in this family meant consent. And in that moment, as her mother beamed with pride and Rachel gave her that smug, tearful grin of gratitude, Megan had a vision so vivid it stunned herself. Fading, disappearing, not in death, in identity. She wasn't Megan anymore. She was the backup mom, the unpaid nanny, the filler in someone else's crumbling life. And the worst part? No one even noticed. If betrayal had a sound, it would be applause. It started slow. A few claps, a cheer, a raised glass. Then came the words that would rewrite Megan's life. "She's agreed to help Rachel with the kids," her mother said proudly, as if Megan had just won an award. She's always been dependable, so selfless, a true example of what it means to be family. There was laughter, some nods. Someone actually whispered, "Finally, Rachel catches a break." Megan blinked. Had she missed something? She remembered a phone call a week ago. Her mother asking, "Could you maybe help Rachel with the kids this weekend?" Megan had said, "Maybe, just for a few hours." That wasn't consent. That wasn't a promise. But now, standing in a garden full of relatives, Megan realized the truth. Her silence had been weaponized. No one had asked. No one had confirmed. They simply decided Megan would mother the children Rachel no longer wanted full-time. She felt her stomach twist. She looked at Rachel, smiling sweetly, pretending to wipe a tear like she'd just been honored at the Oscars. And then Rachel had the nerve to say, "I'm so grateful. Megan's always been like a second mom to them. This just makes it official." More clapping. Megan couldn't breathe. She wasn't being asked to help. She was being assigned, like a task, a role, a title she never applied for. And worst of all, they acted like they were doing her a favor, as if Megan's independence was a burden they were helping her shed, as if the chance to raise someone else's kids was some kind of spiritual promotion. In that moment, Megan wasn't even angry. She was numb. She stood frozen in a yard full of people celebrating a decision she hadn't made, a future she hadn't chosen. And in that eerie stillness, one question echoed louder than the laughter. What if I just walk away? She smiled, not because she was happy, not because she agreed, but because that's what Megan always did. Smile when confused, smile when disappointed, smile when cornered. It was muscle memory now, like a survival reflex she didn't know how to turn off. But inside she was screaming. There wasn't rage, not yet, not even sadness. What she felt was something far more dangerous, something quieter, colder, invisibility. Megan stood in a backyard full of relatives, people who knew her birthday, her favorite cookie recipe, even the name of her high school crush. Yet not one of them had thought to ask her if she wanted this. Not one person pulled her aside and asked, "Megan, are you okay with this? Megan, do you want to be part of this plan? Megan, how's your life going?" Because to them, Megan's life was a blank page, a canvas they could paint their chaos onto. She was the good one, the quiet one, the one who wouldn't fight back. But in that moment, with plastic chairs scraping behind her and children running under tables, Megan realized something terrifying. She had been erased, not accidentally, but intentionally. Her needs, her goals, her independence quietly pushed aside in favor of someone else's emergency. And the applause that still echoed in the garden, it didn't sound like praise anymore. It sounded like a eulogy. If Megan didn't have children, if she had no wedding ring, no custody papers, no stroller in the hallway, no bottles in her fridge, then why did everyone treat her like she had birthed the entire family's responsibility? Was it because she never said no? Was it because she was always available? Was it because silence in this family meant surrender? They looked at her life, the quiet apartment, the flexible job, the lack of a husband or pets or drama, and thought, she has nothing tying her down, so she must exist to carry the rest of us. But here's what they never understood. Just because a woman is childless doesn't mean she's lifeless. Megan had dreams, plans, boundaries, a rhythm to her life that made sense until someone else's chaos crashed right through it. No one asked what she wanted. They only saw what she could offer. And in that moment, under the string lights and paper lanterns, Megan wasn't asking for applause. She was asking a question so sharp, so quiet, it cut deeper than any scream. If I don't have children, why am I being treated like the mother of everyone's mess? After 8 years of marriage, Rachel came home with 3 kids and a suitcase full of excuses. Depending on the day, the reason changed. Her husband cheated. She needed space. She had to find herself. She deserved better. But whatever the story was, one thing remained the same. She was back in town. Back near their parents. Back with Aiden, Lily, and Max, ages 10, 8, and 5. Each one holding on to her like she was the only stable thing they had left. And Megan was asked a tiny favor. Just helped for a few months, Rachel had said sweetly, moving into a modest second-floor apartment just 2 blocks from their parents' house. She just needs to get back on her feet. So Megan did what she always did. She stepped in. At first, it was just covering half the rent, $825, split down the middle. Rachel said she'd pay her back. That was month 1. By month 3, it was still waiting for child support. By month 6, no one mentioned repayment at all. By month 10, everyone just assumed Megan paid it, because Megan always does. And Megan Shea. She never asked for it back. She didn't want to be petty, didn't want to stir things up, didn't want to hear her mother say again, "Megan, family comes first." But every first of the month transfer felt heavier. She wasn't just paying rent, she was paying for someone else's freedom, while sacrificing her own. It started with little things, a weekend babysit here, an after-school pickup there, just until Rachel figures things out. Megan didn't complain. She told herself it was temporary. She marked dates on a calendar, counting the weeks, then months. But soon, the calendar didn't matter anymore. The responsibilities didn't fade. They grew. By month 4, Rachel was dropping off the kids without asking. Emergency hair appointment. Last-minute dinner with a friend. Max has a cold. Can you just watch him while I nap? By month 7, Megan was cooking dinner for 3 extra mouths almost every other night. By month 9, she had the kids' shoe sizes memorized. She knew which brand of cereal made Lily cry and which cartoons Max couldn't sleep without. By month 11, she was canceling her own weekend plans before Rachel even asked. And through it all, not once did anyone say thank you. Not Rachel, not their mother, not even the kids who had been taught, perhaps unconsciously, that Aunt Megan's help was a given, not a gift. And maybe that's what hurt the most. She was always there, so they stopped seeing her. Megan wasn't a mom. She didn't have kids, didn't read parenting blogs, didn't own a minivan, didn't wear leggings with yogurt stains. But if someone had walked into her apartment any given Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., they'd swear otherwise. The kitchen was chaos. One pot boiling over, Max crying because his pancake had the wrong syrup, Lily refusing to eat anything green, and Aiden yelling from the couch that the Wi-Fi was glitching again. At the same time, Megan's laptop sat open on the counter, a spreadsheet blinking, a client waiting on a Zoom call. An unpaid invoice that needed correcting. She was working, she was cooking, she was calming, she was negotiating, she was failing at everything, just trying to keep the pieces from falling apart. By 6 p.m., she'd be breaking up a fight over a cartoon. By 6:15, she'd be reheating food no one touched. By 6:30, she'd be texting Rachel, who wouldn't answer. No backup, no thanks, just more demands. And every day, the line between helping out and being the stand-in mother blurred a little more, until one night, as she sat on the floor scrubbing applesauce out of the carpet, Megan whispered something she hadn't dared say out loud before. "I feel like a single mom, except they're not even my kids." One evening, Megan tried to speak up. It was after Max had spilled juice on her laptop and Aiden had deleted her client file trying to play Minecraft. Her Zoom call crashed. Her work was lost. And Rachel nowhere to be found. So Megan called her mother. "Mom, I need some help," she said softly, barely holding it together. Her mother sighed, the kind of sigh that always came before a guilt trip. "Sweetheart," she said, "Rachel's going through a hard time. She lost everything. You don't have any kids. You have flexibility. It's only fair." Fair, Megan swallowed her anger. "I've been helping for almost a year. I pay half her rent. I cancel my own plans. I cook for her kids. Who's helping me, Mom?" There was a pause. Then her mother replied, calm, firm, final. "Megan, in every family, someone has to give a little more, and you're the only one who has room to give. So yes, you help. That's just how it is." And just like that, her freedom was reclassified as availability. Her single life wasn't something to protect, it was something to exploit. In their eyes, Megan wasn't sacrificing, she was simply doing her duty. Because when you don't have children of your own, you're expected to raise everyone else's. It was Thursday, the kind of Thursday that feels like it lasted all week. Megan had spent the day juggling 3 client calls, 2 urgent reports, and 1 faulty internet connection. Her shoulders ached, her eyes burned. The only thing she looked forward to was silence. At 7:48 p.m., she finally collapsed onto the couch. She had just pressed play on her favorite crime drama when bang, bang, bang! 3 sharp knocks at the door, then the doorbell. Once, twice, 5 times in a row. Megan didn't move at first. She hoped, prayed it was a mistake, a neighbor, anything but what her gut already knew. She opened the door. Rachel stood there, makeup fresh, perfume strong, wearing a tight green dress and holding Max, who was crying and rubbing his eyes. Behind her, Aiden dragged a suitcase. Lily clutched a stuffed animal and a tote bag. "Hey," Rachel said too casually. Sorry for the short notice, but this is really important. Before Megan could speak, Max was shoved into her arms. His face was sticky, his nose running, her blouse instantly stained. David is about to come over. He doesn't know I have kids. Megan blinked. I'm sorry, what? Rachel talked fast, like ripping off a Band-Aid. He still thinks I'm just a divorcee, no strings attached. If he finds out too early, he might run. I have to play this right. He's different. He's got a real job. A house. A future. I can't mess this up. Megan stood frozen. She wasn't being asked. She was being used. Like always. Megan didn't blink. She stood in the doorway holding a sleepy, sticky Max while Rachel checked her lipstick in the hallway mirror like this was all perfectly normal. Megan whispered, "You can't be serious." Rachel turned completely unfazed. Then she said it, "David still thinks I'm just a divorcee, no strings attached." The words sliced through Megan like glass. No strings. What were the 3 kids behind her then? Decorations, luggage, background noise. Rachel continued rapid fire. He's got real potential, Meg. He's not like the others. I just need a few weeks, a month tops. And once I know he's hooked, I'll tell him, gently. Megan's jaw tightened. Her fingers trembled on Max's shoulder. Rachel, she said, her voice low, you're asking me to lie for you. Again. But Rachel wasn't listening. She was already dialing their mom. Let me guess, she said smugly into the phone. Megan's being dramatic again. 30 seconds later, Megan heard it. Her mother's voice through the phone, cold and certain. Megan, you don't have children. You're not tied down. If you won't help your sister, who will? And that's when Megan knew no one in this family would ever see her as anything but available. Megan shook her head, firmly, finally. No, she said. Not tonight. Not again. Rachel's face twisted somewhere between insulted and offended, like Megan had just broken some silent contract they never agreed on. You're kidding me? Rachel scoffed. Megan didn't answer. She walked into the hallway, placed Max gently on the couch, and turned toward her bedroom. But she could hear Rachel behind her already grabbing her phone. She's doing this again? Rachel hissed. She's being selfish. And then dialing, calling. Mom? Megan froze in the hallway. She didn't want to hear it again. That sentence. That line that had haunted her for years. But the voice came through the speaker, calm, rehearsed, razor sharp. Megan, you don't have children. You're not married. You work from home. So if not you, then who? Silence. Megan didn't scream. She didn't slam any doors. She simply shut her bedroom door behind her and cried into the pillow like a child who just realized being the available one means being the only one no one protects. That night, they stayed. Rachel never came back. No follow-up call, no thank you, not even a text, just silence. By 9 p.m., the house looked like a daycare center after a hurricane. Max had thrown up on the hallway rug, Lily knocked over the glass vase Megan got from Grandma's attic, Aiden, frustrated with a cartoon buffering, slammed the remote into the television. Crack. A spider web of broken pixels spread across the screen. Megan didn't move. She sat there on the armrest of the couch staring at the fractured TV. She wasn't looking at the show. She was looking at herself. Her reflection, fractured, distorted, stared back at her from the glass. That was it. That was Megan Holstead, the good daughter, the responsible aunt, the default babysitter, the woman who never screamed. But at that moment, she realized she didn't have to scream to feel shattered. Megan woke before sunrise. The apartment was still. 3 kids snuggled on the couch in a chaotic pile of blankets and stuffed animals. She stepped quietly through the mess. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She was done. She didn't leave a dramatic note, no accusations, no guilt trips. Just a page. Simple handwritten. Rachel, the kids are safe and fine, but I can't do this anymore. Not like this. I need to live a life that belongs to me. I hope one day you'll understand. Megan. She cleaned the dishes, folded a load of laundry, left a plate of pancakes on the table. Then she packed one suitcase. Just one. And she left. Not a goodbye, not a scene. Just silence. The kind that follows years of being unheard. Megan didn't rage. She recalculated. First, she logged into her bank app, found the $825 auto transfer labeled Rachel Rent Support, canceled it with 2 taps. Then she called Mr. Donaldson, the landlord. "Can I break the lease early?" "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Everything's changing," she replied. That night, when the kids were asleep, she started packing. Not in a rush, not in panic, in rhythm. One drawer at a time, one closet, one shelf of books she hadn't touched in years. She boxed her boundaries. For every shirt folded, a piece of herself returned. She sold the bunk beds on Facebook Marketplace, donated the extra toys to a shelter, cleaned the apartment like she owed it respect, not the people who drained her. By the 3rd night, the apartment looked hers again, and she was ready to leave it behind, not because it was broken, but because she wasn't going to break inside it anymore. She didn't call her mom. She didn't text Rachel. She didn't post some cryptic status on Instagram. No taking a break. No protecting my peace. No, this isn't goodbye. It's see you later. Nothing. Because Megan finally understood she didn't need an audience for her exit. She didn't need permission to vanish. She just left. The silence wasn't a scream. It was a boundary. The kind no one else drew for her, but she finally drew for herself. And for the first time in a very long time, Megan Holstead belonged to no one else's story but her own. The apartment was small, modest, quiet, but the view? Out the sliding doors was a narrow balcony just big enough for one chair and a pot of rosemary. Beyond that, the river. Not grand or Instagram-worthy. Just steady, moving, alive. Megan stood barefoot on the balcony the first morning, coffee in hand. No alarms, no cartoon noise, no questions, just space. She named this place The Retreat. Not an escape, not a hiding spot, not a bolt hole, a retreat, a place to heal, to rebuild, to meet the version of herself that had been buried under years of obligation. And in the quiet air of Columbus, Megan Holstead breathed like a woman who finally had permission from herself. Rachel showed up, like every other weekend, confident, rehearsed, expecting the routine to unfold. She had the kids in tow, Aiden with his headphones half on, scrolling his phone, Lily clutching a worn stuffed animal, eyebrows already furrowed about something trivial, Max dragging his feet, rubbing sleep from his eyes. She rang the bell. Once, twice, then held it down as if the door might magically open if she just pressed harder. No footsteps, no muffled voice, no familiar shuffle of someone coming to take over. She tried the handle. Locked. The same door that had always swung wide for her, now silent, sealed. Taped to the frame just below eye level was a single piece of paper. In block letters typed or printed cleanly, it read, "This apartment is now occupied by a new tenant. For inquiries, contact Mr. Wilkins." Rachel's smile wavered. She looked past the note, expecting Megan to step out, late, dramatic, apologizing. But there was only quiet. Her hand went to her phone reflexively. Before she could dial, Aiden muttered, "Is Aunt Megan not home?" Lily tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, why is there a note?" Rachel's throat tightened. She stared at that paper like it was a mistake someone would erase. Her confidence cracked, just a hairline fracture, but she covered it with a forced laugh. "Okay, weird," she said louder than necessary. She pressed the doorbell again. Still nothing. The kids shifted behind her, unsettled. Rachel swallowed, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the ground tilt. Rachel's calm facade dissolved the second she stepped away from the door. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and hit Megan's name first. Ringing, straight to voicemail. No message. No, "I'm coming,"
just silence and the little dead tone that meant unavailable. She called again, then texted, "Megan, open the door. Now, I'm outside."
What is going on? No reply. The blue bubble stayed unread. Or maybe it was delivered and ignored. She didn't know which hurt worse. Panic bubbled under the surface. She dialed her mother. "Mom," she barked the second the call connected. "Where is Megan? She's gone. The kids are here. There's a note on the door. What does this mean?" Her mother's voice was slow, careful. "Rachel, breathe. Maybe she's just out. Give her a minute." "Out?" Rachel snapped. "Mom, the note says new tenant." "She moved. She left the kids. I have David coming over. He can't know. What am I supposed to do?" Silence on the line. A pause that felt like judgment. Then, "Rachel, you know how Megan is. She's always been the one who does the heavy lifting. Maybe she needed space." "Needed space," Rachel hissed. "She left without telling me, without telling anyone. She left the kids here. This was supposed to be her job." She hung up, flipped through her contacts. David. She tapped his name, heart racing. No answer. She called again, went to voicemail. The fear twisted into anger. Her mind spun fast, stitching together explanations before anyone could ask questions. He'll understand. I'll tell him she's sick. I'll say she had to go handle something urgent. He'll be fine. She tried Megan one more time. Then the landlord, Mr. Wilkins. The line rang, rang, rang. Finally a click and a gruff voice. "Rachel, this is Wilkins." "Where is Megan? She was here. She just disappeared." "The kids are with me. I need to know what happened." There was a beat. Then he said slowly, almost too calmly, "Miss Megan moved out last week. She returned the keys. I didn't hear from her. I assumed she needed space." Rachel's breath caught. Moved out? Last week? She hadn't even known she was gone. She slammed the phone down, the sound sharp in the quiet hallway. Her mind shifted into blame. Everyone else's fault. Megan was selfish. Megan was dramatic. Megan was ruining everything. She glanced over at the kids' faces, confused, anxious, already picking up on her tension. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Okay," she told them, too loudly. "Let's go get something to eat. Aunt Megan's just busy. She'll be back." But she didn't believe it, and neither did they. Rachel's fingers moved like they were racing time. First, her mother. "Mom, you have to help me," she barked the second the call connected. "Megan's gone. She moved out. She left the kids here." "David's coming over. He can't know. What do I do?" Her mother's tone softened, then slipped into that old familiar script. "Rachel, calm down. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she'll come back. You know how Megan is. She always does the heavy lifting. Just handle it for now. Make it sound like a mix-up. Tell David she's sick. He'll understand if you frame it right." Rachel swallowed, nodding, even though her mother couldn't see her. "I can't keep covering. She just vanished." "I don't have time to rebuild the story, Mom. I need to keep him here tonight. He can't walk in and see chaos. He can't know the truth." Next, Mr. Wilkins, the landlord. Her voice cracked a little when she called. "Wilkins, what do you mean she moved out last week? Where did she go? The kids are here with me. I'm supposed to drop them off. I need to know if she's coming back. This was supposed to be arranged." "I have David coming, and I can't have him see—" "She left," Wilkins interrupted flat. "She returned the keys. I assumed she needed space. That's all I know, Rachel. I didn't hear from her again." Rachel's breath shortened. Time was bubbling into pressure. "Last, David." She tapped his name, heart racing. He didn't pick up at first. Voicemail. She left a rushed message. "Hey, David, something's up with Megan. She's not here. She had to step out last minute. Don't worry, everything's fine. Just come over a little later. I'll make sure it's smooth. Please, just give me a few minutes." Minutes stretched. Then he called back. "Rachel, what's going on?"
She could hear the caution under his voice, the slight distance. David, she's busy. She had to handle something. I was supposed to drop the kids and then she vanished. You're here, right? Just come by. It's nothing serious, I swear. I can explain. His tone shifted. Rachel, you told me you didn't have kids. Now there are 3 kids, and Megan's gone. That doesn't add up. She heard the doubt, the tilt. I know. She's taking care of something. Let's not talk about it now. Just come over. I need you here. Don't leave me hanging. He promised to come. Rachel exhaled half relief, half dread, because she knew once he saw the children, the story would have to hold, and if it cracked, everything would. The air felt thin. David finally arrived, pulling up in a clean car, holding a bouquet of white lilies, nervous, hopeful, expecting the polished version of Rachel he'd been sold. He stepped up to the door and froze. 3 kids stood behind Rachel, eyes wide, unevenly dressed, carrying bags, looking unsettled. Rachel's smile was too tight. The note on the door still fluttered slightly in the breeze. David looked at Rachel, then at the children. Hey, he said, trying to sound casual. Who are they? Rachel swallowed. She took a breath like she was about to perform. These are kids from church, she said, voice light rehearsed. I was helping with a parenting workshop. They needed a place to stay for a few hours. Megan's just out stepping out for something. No big deal. Aiden, who had been quiet until now, furrowed his brow. He wasn't stupid. He'd seen the way Rachel acted. He looked at David, then at Rachel, and with the blunt honesty of a 10-year-old said, Uncle David, are you Mom's new boyfriend? The air snapped. David blinked. His gaze slid from Aiden to Rachel. Rachel's smile faltered. Microseconds of hesitation exposed the lie like a crack in glass. David took a step back. You told me you didn't have kids? He said, quiet, controlled. Rachel's eyes darted, searching for something to hold on to. She started, then stopped. The rehearsed words dissolved. The lilies in David's hand drooped a little as if he could feel the shift. He shook his head, the disappointment settling in like a physical weight. Rachel, he said slowly, this isn't what we talked about. He turned. He walked away. No drama, no shouting, just the sound of his footsteps fading into silence. Rachel stood frozen. The 3 kids stared after him, confused, hurt, tiny islands of truth in the wreckage. Aiden's question hung in the air like a verdict. Rachel's face crumpled. The performance collapsed. She sank to the stoop, palms pressed into her eyes, the breath coming in broken, shaky pulls. The lie had peeled open, and in the silence afterward, Rachel realized she had no script left to read from. The phone buzzed like a swarm. Megan was halfway through her morning yoga routine, the afternoon sun soft on her balcony when the first message appeared. Rachel, you ruined everything! David left, he saw the kids, he knows. This was your choice. How could you just vanish, you selfish witch? The kids are crying. I'm the one explaining. You think you're free? You destroyed my only chance. Mom says you betrayed the whole family. You always do this. You always walk away when things get hard. I'm losing him because of you. You were supposed to help. You promised. Answer me, now. The messages kept coming, rapid, jagged, piling up in blue bubbles. Guilt, desperation, blame, and entitlement wrapped in punctuation. Rachel, later. I don't know what I'm supposed to tell David. He thinks I've been hiding kids. You've made me look like a liar. You think you're brave? You think this is freedom? You left 3 kids stranded and a mess for me to clean. If you cared at all, you would fix this. You would come back. You owe me. Megan read them, one after another. The sound of the notifications faded into the background, like rain against a window she no longer opened. She didn't reply. She stared at the last one, you owe me, and felt something settle, not anger this time, but a quiet confirmation. The version of her who used to bend had died. The new version didn't engage in drama. She had already chosen peace. She set the phone face down. She went back to her notebook, opened a new page in the retreat journal, and wrote, "I didn't ruin anything. I stopped holding pieces of everyone else's life so theirs wouldn't collapse. That's all." The phone rang, and Megan didn't need to look to know who it was. Her mother's name flashed Eleanor, with the same crisp edge that had shaped so many of her shoulds over the years. "Hi, Mom," Megan said quietly, not flinching. There was no small talk, no "how are you," just the weight of expectation landing like a blow. "Megan?" her mother began, voice controlled but tight. "What did you? Rachel's future is falling apart. David left. She was finally getting something stable, something you threatened. You're ruining her chance. You're ruining the whole family. Do you know what this looks like from the outside?" Megan held the silence for a beat, feeling the old reflex to soften, to explain, to take it, but she didn't. This time, she spoke without the tremor that used to come when that sentence landed. "Mom," she said, calm but unshakable, "I didn't ruin anything. I stopped being the unpaid safety net so Rachel could stop pretending stability came from me. She was building her future on a lie. That's what's falling apart. Not because I left, because she thought she could hide the truth and still call it a fresh start." There was a pause. On the other end, Eleanor went quiet for a second, the smallest crack in the performance. Then she leaned into the familiar script. "You're being selfish," her mother said softer now, like it was a diagnosis. "You're tearing her down. Do you know what it's like to watch her try? She's trying to rebuild. You're making it harder. Family comes first, Megan. Everyone sacrifices. You're the only one without a real obligation." Megan didn't raise her voice. She didn't beg for empathy. "I've been sacrificing for years," she replied. "No one ever asked me if I was okay. I didn't say yes to this last time. I didn't sign up to be invisible so someone else could rewrite their truth. I'm not the one tearing anything down, Mom. I stopped killing my own life so someone else could chase theirs." Silence again. Then, in that thin quiet, her mother tried one more time. "You could have handled it differently. You could have stayed and made it work. You got to walk away. Rachel's stuck picking up pieces." Megan exhaled, not in defeat, but as a release. "I handled it the only way I could, without becoming the kind of woman you all expect me to be, broken, resentful, and silent. I didn't leave to punish. I left to live. If that ruins a version of Rachel's future that was built on manipulation, then maybe it wasn't a future worth saving." The line went quiet. The call ended without a real resolution, just the same old echo of family first, and a new, quieter truth sitting solid in Megan's chest. She didn't shout it. She spoke it like it was a fact, not an accusation, looking at her own reflection in the dark window, the river light faint behind her. "I didn't ruin anyone's dream. I just stopped killing mine, so someone else could chase theirs." The words landed heavy and clean, the kind that unclogged something inside her. She said it again, softer this time, as if affirming it to the part of her that had been trained to disappear. "I'm done dying, so other people can live." Then she moved. She opened her banking app. The scheduled transfer, Rachel Mitchell, $825 monthly, blinked on the screen. She tapped cancel. The confirmation flashed. Canceled successfully. She took a screenshot. No drama, no flourish, just a quiet cut. Then she typed the last message. "Since to you I'm already dead, I guess you don't need money from a dead person anymore." No emoji, no punctuation that softened it. She sent it. She placed the phone face down, let the light from the river spill across the journal page, and for the first time in years, the silence after the storm felt like space, not void. The transfer was gone, not paused, not "we'll talk about it later." Gone. Megan watched the little confirmation box blink on her screen. Recurring payment to Rachel Mitchell, $825, canceled permanently. The words felt like an echo in a hollow room, small but reverberating. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel guilty. She felt lighter. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the weight she'd been carrying that didn't belong to her. She snapped a photo of the confirmation, steady hands, no flourish, and saved it in a folder labeled Boundaries. Then she closed the laptop gently, like closing the lid on a chapter. Outside, the river moved on, indifferent and steady. Inside, Megan made coffee. She sat with the steam rising, held the mug with both hands, and let that quiet space exist without explanation. She knew the fallout was coming. Texts, calls, accusations. But in that moment, with the morning soft and unbroken, she didn't budge. She had finally stopped underwriting someone else's life. And for the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for permission to breathe. Megan didn't overthink the words. She typed them, read them once, then pressed send. Since to you I'm already dead, I guess you don't need money from a dead person anymore. No emoji, no softener, no explanation. Just the truth she'd been carrying in silence for years, compressed into a line and released. She set the phone face down. She didn't wait for a response. She made herself a cup of tea, opened her journal, and wrote a single sentence beneath the morning's entry. Boundaries are the quiet revolutions. Miles away, Rachel's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She glanced down, expecting another frantic, "I need you" from someone else, then saw Megan's message. Her thumb hovered over the screen. The blue bubble glared back. Since to you I'm already dead, I guess you don't need money from a dead person anymore. Something in her chest snapped. She fired back without thinking. You selfish coward. You think disappearing solves anything? I'm falling apart because of you. She slammed the phone down, then picked it up again and called their mother. Her voice trembled between fury and desperation. Mom, she sent me this. She's dead to us. She owes me. She promised. What am I supposed to do now? Meanwhile, Megan heard none of it. The only sound in her apartment was the quiet rustle of pages and the distant, slow flow of the river outside, a reminder that some currents move forward whether anyone protests or not. Megan's mornings no longer started with a ring, no emergency text. No last-minute, "Can you help?" Just light, soft, uninvited filtering through thin curtains. She rolled out her yoga mat on the wooden floor, not because she was trying to fix herself, but because her body finally had space to breathe. She didn't rush. She didn't check a calendar for someone else's needs. She moved slowly, aware of every breath, inhale, exhale, like she was learning her own rhythm again. After practice, she boiled water. Not for a rushed coffee grabbed between obligations, but for mint tea, fresh leaves steeped slowly, the steam curling like a small, private ceremony. She sat on the balcony, bare feet warm on the rug. She chose the river whispering below and sipped. No one interrupted. No guilt surfaced when she set the cup down and watched the ripple of steam disappear. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was a presence, a soft, unassuming witness to her own existence. She began to put little markers on her days that weren't about anyone else's crisis. Tuesday mornings, 30 minutes of breathwork followed by journaling. Thursday afternoons, a walk to the corner coffee shop, where she'd sit with a notebook and write down new ideas, not for clients, but for herself. Sundays, slow breakfasts, pancakes with real maple syrup, and a call to Amy that wasn't about fixing someone else's life. No one asked, "Are you free?" No one assumed her time was theirs to take. Her calendar had become a map of permission she gave herself. Sometimes, when the wind carried the soft sound of children playing far away, Megan would close her eyes and feel the old pull, the reflex to check, to fix, to show up. Then she'd breathe in and breathe out and remember she didn't owe anyone constant rescue. That morning, with the steam from her tea curling up like a small flag of peace, Megan wrote in her retreat journal, "For the first time, I'm not disappearing to make someone else whole. I am whole enough to sit still." She set the pen down, held the mug with both hands, and simply existed. No explanation needed, no performance required. Megan never planned to be loud. She didn't want followers. She didn't want validation. She just wanted to write one honest paragraph, one morning at a time, about what it felt like to stop being everyone else's emergency. She called it Retreat, Not Escape. The title was deliberate. It wasn't running away, it was returning. A slow, quiet step back to herself. She wrote from the balcony, with mint tea cooling beside her, using a pseudonym. No photo, no identifying details. She wrote about the silence that used to feel like drowning, and how now the silence felt like space. She wrote about the moment she canceled the transfer, the first time she whispered to herself, "I didn't ruin anyone's dream, I just stopped killing mine." She wrote about the difference between being available and being willing, and how years of being the invisible go-to had taught her to apologize for having boundaries. She published the first post on a Tuesday. No promotion, no hashtags. The next morning, she had a comment. "I thought I was the only one. My sister's kids live with me half the time, and I've been apologizing to everyone for needing space. Reading this like you put words to the guilt I've carried. Thank you." A woman in Missouri, mid-20s, who had been quietly losing herself in her role as the fallback aunt. Then another. "I'm 68 and divorced. I've spent 40 years being the family's anchor, picking up after kids, grandkids, exes. I always thought it was love. Now I see it was a slowly tightening noose." Your line about boundaries being quiet revolutions saved me today. A grandmother in Colorado, writing from a small mountain cabin. The comments multiplied. A teacher in Ohio wrote that she'd forwarded the post to 3 coworkers who were doing too much for everyone and nothing for themselves. A young dad from Texas messaged saying he'd been guilted into parenting his siblings' children, and that reading Megan's entry finally gave him a name for the exhaustion emotional exploitation. Megan didn't respond to all of them. She didn't have to. Just seeing the notifications, little red dots of connection, was proof she wasn't alone, and neither were they. A reader in Atlanta wrote, "I've been hiding behind the phrase family first for decades. Your blog made me see the difference between family supporting and family demanding." Another, a nurse in Seattle, sent a private message, "I used to think my burnout was just bad time management. Now I know I was carrying other people's lives on my back. Thank you for the map." The blog became a quiet community. No flashy About Me page, no algorithm chase. Just people showing up, reading, leaving a piece of themselves in a reply, and sometimes sharing the link with someone who needed to hear, "You don't owe them all of you." Megan watched it grow like a garden she hadn't meant to plant. Each note, whether from Colorado or Missouri, Ohio, or Texas, was a small mirror reflecting back the truth she had once refused to see. Leaving wasn't abandonment, it was reclamation. Helen lived one flight down. She was nearly 30 years older than Megan, with a memory that could recite the names of everyone in her high school class, but somehow could never remember where she left her glasses or her keys, which often ended up in the microwave. Their friendship started with a knock. "Hey, kiddo," Helen had called up the stairwell the first week Megan moved in. "You ever see a pair of glasses around here? I swear they grow legs." Megan laughed and went down to help. She returned Helen's glasses, and Helen insisted on making her tea, her version of a thank you, which came in a chipped cup and a story about the good old days when anyone's problem was everybody's problem. They kept seeing each other in the hallway, short, shared smiles, nods, the kind of small recognition that slowly became conversation. Megan learned Helen had stopped going out much since her husband passed. Helen learned Megan had been disappearing under heaviness for years and finally freed herself. One afternoon, Megan brought over the laptop and said, "Let me show you how to follow your dance class online. You don't need to call your niece every time the schedule changes." Helen squinted at the screen, fingers tapping awkwardly on the trackpad. "Is this the thing where I can stalk my grandchildren without them knowing?" she joked. Megan showed her the basics gently: how to create a private profile, how to adjust privacy settings so Helen could follow the senior dance group without flooding her feed with nonsense, how to post a short video of her practicing steps so the class coordinator could give feedback. Helen's eyes lit up when she saw a comment pop up under her first shaky clip. "Love your rhythm, Helen. Keep going." "Kid," Helen said, turning to Megan with a grin that softened her whole face, "you've given me a voice I didn't know I had." In return, Helen had something for Megan. One rainy Saturday, she invited Megan over. "You want to learn pie?" she asked, pulling a worn recipe card from a drawer. The paper was stained around the edges, each blotch a memory. "Apple pie, no sugar." "My doctor says I have to keep my heart from overworking itself, but I refuse to eat cardboard. Here's how we make sweetness without the betrayal." They spent the afternoon elbow deep in cinnamon and apples. Helen taught Megan how to slice the fruit just so thin, enough to soften, thick enough to hold texture. She showed her the trick simmering the apples with a touch of vanilla, a squeeze of lemon, and a secret blend of spices that tasted sweet, though no sugar was added. "You ever hear about the thing that makes this good?" Helen asked, sprinkling a little ground nutmeg. "It's called time. Let it sit. Don't rush healing or the filling." Megan laughed, wiping flour from her forearm. "You're full of metaphors today." Helen leaned in, tapping Megan's hand. "Honey, you're living one. That's why you needed the retreat. Now you're planting something that'll feed more than just you." They baked, they ate. Helen insisted Megan take home the leftover slice wrapped in a cloth, and Megan insisted on showing Helen how to schedule posts so Helen could keep following her dance group without accidentally sharing her grocery list with the world. Those afternoons became a rhythm. Helen would bring stories, some sharp, some tender, about how she used to carry people's burdens like they were bricks in her pockets. Megan would bring new ideas. "Try limiting notifications, Helen. Your piece isn't a public service." Together, they built small routines. Helen taught Megan how to make her pie without guilt. Megan taught Helen how to send a private message without feeling exposed. And in between bites of still warm apple pie, the word retreat stopped feeling like something she needed to escape to. It began to mean home. For most of her life, Megan had been waiting for approval to take a break, waiting for someone to sign off before she said no, waiting for a gentle, "It's okay that you exist like this," from a family that saw her effort as default, not gift. In Columbus, something shifted. It wasn't a single moment. It was a slow accumulation of mornings where she didn't check her phone first thing. Afternoons where she didn't apologize for taking time to sit. Evenings when she didn't feel guilty for closing her laptop and not answering the world. She realized one noon, sitting with Helen over a slice of warm, sugar-free apple pie, that she hadn't said, "Sorry, I'm taking a minute," in days. Helen was humming quietly, stirring her tea, and said without looking up, "You know, honey, nobody ever gave me permission to slow down either. I just did. Took it, like it was mine. That's how you start." Megan smiled. She had been carrying permission slips in her head for so long, silent, invisible, scribbled with words like, "After you finish helping," "If you're sure they're okay," "Don't make it about you." Now, those slips fluttered like old receipts in a drawer she'd emptied. She started saying things out loud that used to live in her head like forbidden wishes. "I'm going to take the whole afternoon to write. I don't have to answer that message tonight. I'm not available because I'm choosing to rest." No one asked her to justify it. No one stared. No one questioned her worthiness. Her calendar didn't need little asterisks anymore. No more tentative next to self-care blocks. She blocked off time for nothing but breathing. She scheduled quiet hours and didn't feel the itch to label them productive. In the mirror, she caught herself once just standing. No makeup, no performance. And a voice inside, quiet, not loud, just steady, said, You don't need their permission. You were never the problem. You were a solution they stole, and now you've taken it back. She wrote that line in the blog, and the reply came from a reader in Oregon. I didn't realize asking permission was what had been stealing my days. I thought I was being respectful. Your words gave me my first unapproved breath. Megan thought about all the times she had tilted her life to fit someone else's frame. Dinners canceled for family, weekends erased for emergencies, emotional labor logged and unpaid. Now, she wasn't erasing herself to make a story easier to swallow for someone else. She was showing up in her life fully, unapologetically, and without carrying a silent checklist of who she needed to appease. That was the true retreat, not the Riverview, not the sugar-free pie, not even the anonymous comments. It was the permission she gave herself daily, the small, unspoken nod that said, "You are enough. You don't have to earn your space anymore." Sometimes the hardest thing isn't walking away. It's feeling the guilt when you do. It's hearing the voices that tell you you failed someone, when in reality, you've finally chosen yourself. Megan's story isn't about punishment. It's not revenge. It's a reclaiming. Sometimes leaving isn't about abandoning others. It's about returning to yourself. She didn't vanish to hurt Rachel. She didn't cut the cord because she was cold. She left because she had been disappearing for years, folding pieces of herself into everyone else's crisis and calling it love. The real tragedy would have been if she stayed, if her life had continued shrinking quietly, if her boundaries had remained invisible, if she had kept saying yes until there was nothing left of Megan. Instead, she chose to breathe, to write her own margin, to build a small, honest life where peace wasn't borrowed, it was hers. And that's the part that matters to all of us, the part where we stop apologizing for choosing ourselves, the part where we realize that love doesn't demand your erasure. It asks you to show up whole. If you've ever been the one who helps out until you're gone, if you've ever felt used because you were available, remember, leaving doesn't always mean you failed. Sometimes it's the bravest step toward coming back whole, unedited, free. Share this story. Tell someone who needs to hear that setting a boundary can be an act of survival. And if you're watching through her eyes, maybe look at your own reflection and ask, what part of me am I still giving away because I was never taught I could keep it? You don't have to disappear to keep others whole. Real strength is setting boundaries, choosing yourself, and reclaiming the life you were quietly giving away. Practical takeaways. Audit your default obligations. Ask, am I doing this because I want to or because nobody ever asked if I could say no? Define and defend your boundaries. Saying no isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. Write down what you will and won't take on and live by it. Stop seeking permission to exist. You don't need external validation to take space, rest, or choose peace. Give yourself the allowance you've been waiting for. Name emotional exploitation. If you are always available and everyone assumes you'll absorb their chaos, pause and ask, am I being taken for granted? Create your own retreat. It can be small time, place, ritual that isn't about escape, but about coming back to yourself. Lean into community, not codependence. Build connections like Megan did with Helen that uplift and exchange, not drain. Tell your story. Sharing your truth anonymously or openly can turn isolation into collective healing. Sometimes leaving isn't abandoning others, it's about returning to yourself. If Megan's story hit you, if you've ever been the one everyone depended on until you quietly disappeared, here's what you can do next. Subscribe to Through Her Eyes so you don't miss stories that help you see yourself, not just everyone else's expectations. Hit the bell to get notified. This isn't the kind of truth you want to sleep on. Like the video if you believe boundaries are brave. Comment below what's one boundary you've been afraid to set. Your voice might be the permission someone else needs. Share this with someone who's been the default for too long. Sometimes the reminder to choose themselves is all it takes. If you want more, join the community, link in description, where we unpack stories like this together. Anonymous, real healing. Remember, leaving isn't failure. Coming back to yourself is courage.